welcome back to Fast Politics, Mark.
Thank you for having me back. I've been
I
waiting.
mean, you were like, you know what? Listeners hate it when I say this, so I won't say it. But we're friends. Okay,
We
I
are.
will
We
say
actually
it, yes.
text back and forth a lot.
We actually, and it's true. And I like don't. I mean, people make fun of me for saying this, but I don't really feel like I have so many friends, especially in this extremely. There's something like very isolating about this moment in American life, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, how could you not feel isolated? There are federal officials who believe that, I don't know if you saw the cabinet
I
spectacle.
saw some of it. Yeah.
There are federal officials who believe that Donald Trump deserves a Nobel Prize. Donald Trump
Yes.
is like talking about how how a lot of people want him to be a dictator. People say,
Right.
they want him to be a dictator.
Many people are saying.
Right. And meanwhile, he is rolling troops down the cities of the United States. There are federal agents masked who are grabbing people and disappearing them. So it is kind of a very worrisome and lonely and isolating time.
I mean, I think we can both agree that he's successfully captured the zeitgeist in a way that has helped him, that he has ridden to the presidency twice. And part of that is just putting everything on television. So those meetings that are pretty much would make Kim Jong-un say, back off, guys, it's not believable, are part of this secret sauce, right?
Absolutely. I mean, he has turned governing into a spectacle reality show, and he's turned a spectacle reality show into governing. I mean,
Right.
it reinforces itself in both directions.
First, let's talk about the arms race, the redistricting arms race that started last week, because you have filed, you're intimately involved in both the legal and also writing about it and explaining it. So I want you to, last week, Trump says wants 5 seats. Abbott, ambitious, thinks he's going to be president next. Paxton running for Senate. The crew gets together to give him 5 seats. What does this open the door to? Talk us through how unprecedented this is.
Yeah, so let's just talk about Texas for a second, then I'll tell you what this opens the door to. So in Texas, exactly as you said, Donald Trump said, I want 5 seats. Greg Abbott said, great, 5 seats it is. Texas Republicans said, great, 5 seats it is. They finally, after some Democratic efforts to prevent it, were able to pass that map. That map got passed by the state Senate at about 2 a.m. On Saturday morning. By 8 a.m. Saturday morning, my law firm had sued to block this from going forward. We filed an amended complaint, and then on Sunday we filed for a preliminary injunction. And we'll see where this goes. I think that what they did here is deeply vulnerable to legal challenge, obviously, and I think people should not be surprised. They should not be settling into the idea that Republicans have pulled this off. So that's number one.
I just want to pause for a second, because that gets to the really important sort of propaganda aspect of this, which is like Trump can say he's fired.
That's right.
Lisa Cook. He can say he's fired her, but he doesn't actually have the authority to do it. Just like Texas, there's so much of this sort of like, I say I can do it, so I've done it. Whereas it's actually not necessarily legal. So
Yeah,
I think that's a really important distinction.
That's exactly right. And I think that you've put your finger on one of Donald Trump's greatest skills is that institutions in this country, whether it is judges in the courts, whether it is the legacy media, that there is a presumption that when the federal government says it's done something, that is like the baseline from which we start. So like if a president says, I have fired someone, the baseline operating assumption is that he has fired the person. And the problem is that isn't true in Trump's world. Like the truth is Donald Trump says a lot of things that are just flat out lies. And so we need to pause. I mean, this is also true about the John Bolton raid. We need to pause. And when Donald Trump says, that, or J.D. Vance says he used we a lot. Talk about what the FBI did. Like everyone needs to just take a step back and not assume that the thing that they are saying is on the up and up, because it's probably
Right.
not on the up and up. And that is true in this Texas thing. I mean, essentially, the state of Texas announced that it was going to comply with the Department of Justice's letter to say that they needed to dismantle districts because they thought that they were that they didn't like the racial composition of them.
Right.
Well, the state of
And that
Texas.
was a letter from Lena Haba.
No, this was actually a letter not from Lena Haba. This was a letter from Pam Bondi and Harmeet Dillon.
Right. Oh, Harmeet Dillon. Sorry. Yeah.
Correct. I know it is hard to keep the election deniers straight, but alas, we have to keep the the former Trump lawyers turned
Yes.
Department of Justice official election deniers straight. So, so Harmeet Dillon sends this letter to the state of Texas saying you have racially gerrymandered your districts by giving minority voters too many rights, essentially.
Right.
But the thing is, the state of Texas had already told federal judges that it didn't use race at all in drawing those districts. Like, it literally is under oath. Ken Paxton put a witness on the stand and reiterated that the districts that were drawn were not drawn based on race. And so now Greg Abbott has dismantled districts that his own department, his own attorney general said were drawn race neutral. And so they have essentially screwed over Black and Latino voters in response to this letter, but their only rationale for doing so is to screw over Black and Latino voters. Well, that violates the Constitution. So I don't think they're going to get away with this, is the bottom line. I don't think they're going to get away with it in Texas, but this is now going to spread. We're going to see Republicans try to do this in Florida. We're going to see Republicans try to do this in Missouri. We're going to see Republicans perhaps try to do this in Indiana. And I'm not sure it ends there. Kelly Ayotte, the governor of New Hampshire, says we're not doing it. Maybe. A lot of Republicans tell Donald Trump no as an opening gambit, but then wind up caving. And on the Democratic side, we have California. Gavin Newsom has managed to get a ballot measure on the
special election.
Yeah, special election in November to essentially redraw the map there and do 5 seats back. My posture, Molly, just so you're clear, when this all started, before Gavin Newsom announced what he was doing, is that Democrats ought to gerrymander 30 seats in response to Texas and might actually dissuade Republicans from going forward. I worry, as much as I appreciate what Governor Newsom is doing, and I think it's great, I am worried that if all we're doing is telling Republicans we will match them, it actually does a disincentive.
Do you think there's a chance that, again, like, this Supreme Court is so in the tank for Trump in a really kind of craven and shocking way, but I do wonder, like, clearly Abbott is opening the door for an arms race that will ultimately negate all of, why even draw congressional districts if you're just going to have states use that, I mean, do you think there's a world in which the Supreme Court steps in and says, like, this is just too stupid, you guys have to stop doing this?
So it's a really important question. And it's one that, if you look at our lawsuit, we raise the question, or not raise the question, we make a claim that essentially the mid-cycle redistricting process that everyone thinks is legal is in fact not legal. And that is in part to see whether the Supreme Court does want to put a hold on this craziness.
Because ultimately it is supposed to be tied to a census and not tied to vibes.
I mean, how charming of you. How charming of you. Yes, it is not supposedly tied to a census. It like constitutionally is tied to the census.
Right.
And you put your finger on the claim that we are making in this Texas case, which is that these districts are now way malapportioned because they're not being drawn. They're like the data, the whole theory is you have a census, then you immediately draw maps. When you draw maps later, they're not going to be equal population because people have moved. And so, like, that is part of the problem here.
But part of the problem here is just we've gotten so far afield from how all of this was meant to be, right? That we're, during Trump's first term, which was unprecedented but still seems quaint compared to now, there was a lot of talk about how, the founders never imagined anyone with a chainsaw ripping through what they had built. I mean, I think that's even more true now, right?
Yeah. So look, this is where I am extremely critical of the courts, and particularly the Supreme Court, because I actually think that there are 2 misconceptions that are empowering Trump. The first is that we have 3 co-equal branches of government. As Jamie Raskin said, co-equal is not even a word. The Constitution envisioned that Congress would be the most powerful branch. So, like, part of what is broken down here is that actually the framers thought the presidency would be a relatively weak institution
Right.
because Congress would have the power to enact laws, to impeach, to remove, to confirm judges or not, to confirm or not confirm cabinet officials, right? It assumed that Congress was going to be this huge check. And in fact, John Thune and Mike Johnson wake up each day and text each other to say, who is going to lick Donald Trump's boots this morning?
Right.
And John Thune says, please let it be me. And Mike Johnson says, no, I've already licked them clean. Right. So, like, part of it is a design problem there. But the second misconception is that the founders never envisioned this. Oh, yes, they did. They left a king. Right?
Right.
Like, the entire creation of the American system of government, the entire theory behind the American system of government was that we would not have a king. We would not have a strong executive. We would not have a president who had much power. I mean,
Right.
if you read the Constitution, what the power of the presidency is the following. Number one, to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. And
Right.
number two, to be the commander in chief of the armed forces. That's
Right.
it. That's
Right.
the power of the presidency. So everything he is doing is under that first piece, or 90% of it, to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. And the courts have kind of read that to mean, the current Supreme Court has kind of read that to mean that he gets to take care however he wants. Faithful is whatever he thinks.
Right.
Execute is when he likes it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's right. And so, and that is, that is the question. I mean, I think the immunity decision was
Yes.
the moment where they were like, fuck it.
Yep.
Let's go.
That's where I think we jump off the rails. I think
Yeah.
that whether it was intentional or was unintentional, we could have a huge debate about, or not debate, we could have a huge discussion, and maybe someday we'll learn in the memoirs or the papers whether
Right.
this was, what did Donald Rumsfeld call it? A known, or an unknown unknown? Like,
Yeah.
was this, like, did they know that this was what was going to happen, or did they not know?
Jesse knows because I often invoke Don Rumsfeld and the great irony of whatever this is, that a known unknown, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like his taxes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, did the Supreme Court, if you ask them today, would they say, yeah, this is exactly what we thought? Or would they say, man, this is not at all what we thought? But either
Yeah.
way, I think that decision is that pivot point in
Jumping off.
which we created a president that is literally above the law. And therefore, what does it mean for a president to have to take care that the laws are faithfully executed if in fact there are no consequences if they don't
Right.
take care that they're
Right.
faithfully?
Well, and that's where we are right now, right?
Yeah.
Trump rolls into the District of Columbia. It's not a city, it's not a state. He can do whatever he wants. He then arms these guys. Talk us through, like, the one sort of bright spot in this story in my mind is that Trump says, I'm going to Chicago next. And Pritzker says, the fuck you are. And then Donald Trump says, maybe I'm not going to Chicago next.
Yeah, I mean, J.D. Pritzker deserves a huge amount of credit. I mean, boy, that was a hell of a speech.
Yeah.
A hell of a speech.
I actually had I actually got a copy of it because I wanted to read it because it's so good, and it's really good. I'll
Yeah.
send it to you. It's really good. Like, I was like, wow. I was, like, reading it to one of my kids. I was like, this is how you write a speech.
Yeah, no, I wrote about it in an essay on Democracy Docket that posted today. And the two parts that I highlight are, number one, he basically validates my thesis that, this is to interfere with the elections, which I think it is.
Yeah.
I think, and then the second thing is, as you know, and oftentimes Molly and I are going back and forth on this in our text exchanges. Like, he sort of says in more polite terms than I do, but like, the media needs to get its head out of its ass and
Yeah.
start covering
Yeah.
this as
Yeah.
not a both side story, but as a one side story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, he said, like, I'm not an alarmist because you should be alarmed.
Yeah. I think he kind of has like the right demeanor for delivering it too.
Yeah. He has a gravitas. Clearly, we're in a moment where there are just very few where I think of this like we're in that squishy moment that where we're not a democracy anymore, but all is not lost. And I would love you to talk because this is what I spend like all my time obsessing about is like when you read all these books about autocracy, one of the things they sort of say is that, everything counts, everything matters. Any win is actually a win. This doesn't happen just like turning off a light. It happens in increments. So what are the things that are making you sort of less despairing?
Yeah, I mean, I think they fall into three categories. The first is we are seeing, despite all of the, the complaining and all of the, you know, one step forward, two steps back, we are seeing an emerging culture of fight among Democrats.
Right.
What you are seeing in California is fight. What you are
Mhm.
seeing from J.B. Pritzker is fight. And like we are seeing an emerging consensus. If in the beginning, I think you and I talked about this, like in January, there were like these competing visions within
Mhm.
Democrats of do we stand up and fight, or do we say we will agree with him where we will agree and work with him where we can and disagree where we must? And I think like that debate is now pretty faded,
Over.
and
Yeah.
there's much more fight. So I think that's a reason for good news.
And the people who thought we should agree with him where we can, which is me, were wrong. And the people who were like, we have to resist everything, which worked pretty well in 2016 in some ways, were right.
Yeah, and look, I wrote a piece for Democracy Docket before he took office saying that what we need is not a resistance, we need a new opposition movement. And
Right.
by that, I spelled it out like this is not going to be the kind of like breezy, we protest, we disagree, and then he retreats. That we have something, as you say, and you put your finger on it. Democracy is broken. Like it's not like on pause. Like the resistance was like we resisted and then it
Right.
goes away and then it comes back. Like we need an opposition movement because this is going to go on for a while. Like this
Yeah.
is not, even if Donald
Yeah.
Trump leaves the scene, the what he has wrought is now in the politics, and we
Yeah.
need a permanent opposition against
Yeah.
this. So I think that's right. The other things that give me hope is that we are seeing the courts still hold against the worst of his worst. I mean, earlier
Yeah.
today, a federal judge who was appointed by Donald Trump excoriated the Department of Justice for their effort to sue essentially all of the judges in Maryland over their immigration order.
You got a
Um,
real crack team there that's
right.
like, we're going to sue all the judges in
Correct,
Maryland.
which is not a
Yeah.
thing, right? You don't get
Yeah.
to sue. It's actually a good example of what we were talking about earlier. Like when they sued the judges, like a lot of the mainstream media were like, today Donald Trump sued the judges or
Right.
DOJ sued the judges. And I was like, you don't fucking get to sue judges. Like that isn't a thing. Like how are you all reporting that this is like a thing? Like it's not a thing.
Right. That's a good point.
Why are we
Right.
reporting it that way? But anyway, so, we saw that earlier today also, and I'm proud of this, my law firm on behalf of our clients, we won a big case in the Third Circuit on undated and misdated ballots in Pennsylvania. Remember that whole Mishigosh?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
court said those ballots have to count. Going forward, no more rejecting ballots in Pennsylvania
Wow.
if they're not dated or misdated. So look, we're having these incremental victories, and as you said, like they all matter, right? Like
Right.
we're not going to get saved by one big thing. We're going to get saved
Right.
by a lot of little things.
Exactly. And I think that is the point. Mark, will you come back? Can we
Yeah.
talk? I'm going to call you. We have to talk more because I want to talk to you more.
All right. I'll be back anytime, and you can always call and text.
Thank you.